So that also, I think, leads to the question as CIOs, where do you make those investments? And it was interesting. Last sort of bit of industry news, I guess, is Gartner released, I think this is an annual study where they talk about IT spend. And the headline got my attention. The headline is that they forecast that IT spending to grow by 9.8% in 2025. On the one hand, not horribly surprising, but always, always good to see that IT spending is increasing. That means, for all the vendors out there, there's more money to go around. What I thought was interesting, there were two sort of interesting data points in it. The first was that there is that a lot of this is sort of what would you call it, AI referential, meaning wasn't necessarily spending on AI directly, but it was spending on those things that were going to set the stage for AI. So it could be PCs or servers or other services with this idea towards future AI investments. So that was interesting. And then the second big thing was that this wasn't as much of a spending increase as it was a cost containment or a keeping up with increasing cost spend, which is, of course, less good news, and does speak to the fact that AI right now is mostly raising the cost across the board for everybody, which is why we're seeing these costs rise with the different vendors. So it was sort of interesting, and in the end, for me, kind of like non-news. But what did you get anything else out of it that you thought was interesting?
So I find these Gartner forecasts interesting more as a record of what has happened in the past year than what they're expecting. A couple of interesting trends is that if you look year over year, I actually looked at their January 2023, January 2024, and January 2025 numbers. And a couple of things that have happened are first, their predictions tend to be a little conservative. Growth has happened actually faster than they've predicted the last couple of years. So in 2022, they expected that 2023 growth would be 2%. It ended up being 3%. And then for 2024, they expected to be 6.8%, and it was actually 7.7%. And the big thing that they missed last year was the data center spend. Obviously, data center spend went through the roof last year, and Gartner completely missed it. They did not expect that was going to happen. And I think they are trying to play catch up and now say, well, and try to predict that. But I think one of the challenges that Gartner has is with dynamic markets. They're not really good with understanding where that spend is going to happen next. I think they are underestimating again in the data center space. And I also find it interesting that they are expecting a big increase in software when I'm not sold on the agents and software making a huge difference in 2025. I know that Benioff wants to sell another $1 billion in and that's great, but am I convinced that there's going to be like $200 billion of AI spent next year
Yeah.
in the software space? Like it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, what I do think is interesting about it. So I actually do think we're going to see an uptick in software spend. I agree. I don't know if it's going to be quite that much, but we're definitely going to be seeing an uptick. I think the part that is interesting, I think the only issue that really is with Gartner is that they are trying to make this something where they think that that they want to make this prediction, right? The reality is that none of us know exactly how this is going to play out or how fast it's going to play out, and it's extremely difficult to figure that out. And particularly when we're simply asking, executives, well, where are you going to spend your money? The reality is this stuff is coming out of left field, and everyone is trying to make their best guess. So all of that plays into it, and it's very challenging. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I guess I love that you have the historical data, and I agree that it's probably underestimated. I think we're seeing the same thing. There's a lot of dedicated AI budgets that are probably not reflected in these numbers, and so we'll see.